place was not what I call my typical basic. The only opportunity that I had to really look for my next victim was around lunchtime. That I would drive over there and eat, and then I'd watch lecture plates on my bar. Use my rest of the telephone mask. I had the smart hat on and a little symbol I stuck on it, and the gear that looked like telephone gear, in my hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Publicly Buzzed Live. Appreciate everybody for being here on a Tuesday night. Yeah, appreciate it. Everybody coming in here that was here early, thank you all so much. Appreciate it. As you guys come in, please hit that like. Helps out the stream here on YouTube, gets it out in the algorithm. Please also share this out on Twitter, share this out on Facebook. Let people know that you're watching Publicly Buzzed Live tonight. Making sure my mic is good. It looks like it's okay. Yeah, tonight we are going over the 9th victim of the BTK Killer, Vicki Wegerle, and really going over the story of her husband, Bill Wegerle, who was accused for 20 years after the death in September of 1986 of his wife. Could you imagine? You get home, your wife has been murdered, been strangled to death by the BTK killers, tied up also, and then left dead in the bedroom. 2 kids also in the house, left alive, luckily. But that's how you get home and you find your wife. You call the EMTs, you call police, and then you are never actually believed to be innocent, and they believe it is you because BTK has changed some of the MOs that he did with this victim, Vicki Wegerle. But yeah, everyone in here tonight. Also, before we get started, I'm going to do a little rundown with the chat. Everybody invite everybody in, but also I do want to say trigger warnings tonight for sure. Just a fair warning. Jay, what's going on, brother? Mandy, Mikey, Miss Esk, Emily, what's going on? Thank you. Appreciate that. John, I've been working on it. I've been trying to get it right. Been trying to get it good. I've been trying to critiquing a little bit. I've got a light that I've been kind of manipulating sort of here and there. Hope I can get it right. Hope I can get it straight. 20. This story. Now, since Carrie's been on, even last Tuesday's show was a BTK Killer stream. I've been deep diving in this. Currently, I'm watching, and I would absolutely recommend this, an HBO documentary. BTK Confessions. It's from January of 2022. It's a 4-part series. I still have 1 episode left, and it is unbelievable. It is unfreaking believable. By Ramsland, Catherine Ramsland, I believe, is basically it's got telephone calls with her with BTK while she's analyzing and critiquing his brain in real time as she's interviewing him and going through the episodes and going through the different murders the BTK committed. And this one right here is the one that trips me out the most because this was a little bit of a break before he did this one in 1986. Again, he changed the MO a little bit. And again, I'm going to go through a story here. I've got a couple of different things that we can watch. I've even got some videos as well. But yeah, he dressed up as a telephone repairman, essentially, to check the phones, got himself inside the house, and the rest is unfortunately history. Wildside, Shannon, Elizabeth Wright, Angel, MJ, what's going on? Thank you, everybody. Oh, wait, actually, let me also make sure I get the chat in here so you guys can actually see that when I pop it up on the old screen. Bada boom, bada boom. Let's see, is it working? There we go. What's going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for hanging out. Appreciate it. Yeah, and also hold on up top here. Salty Sleuth, 2-month anniversary. Hey friends, how are you? 2 months coming through. Holy shit, has it really been that long? That's absolutely amazing. Let me give you a little bit of
anniversary. It's anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Son of a bitch.
I love it. Thank you all so much. City Kitty, Holly Berry. I'm gonna Holly Berry, a little love out the gate. Get wild in here, everybody. Thank you all so much. I am not T-Pain. What's going on? Love everybody coming through here. Thank you all so much. Boom, getting a kiss right here. Boom, hello. Thank you all so much. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. Sarah, going to heed the trigger warning as I'm home alone tonight and don't want to be too freaked out to sleep. I will watch the replay during the day. I do not blame you at all. I do not blame you. And again, that's why I wanted to put that out there tonight. I mean, and especially if you're home alone, that's the time of frame that you don't want to be kind of in this mindset of reading a really fucked up story like this. And that's exactly what this is. So yeah, again, thank you all for hanging out. Share this out, get the likes in, and I'm going to go into the story. If I don't see anything, I apologize. I'm going to kind of just go into this and keep rolling. But thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you all so much. Making it happen, baby. Making it happen. One thing I need to set up before I end this stream. No, I think I already set it up. I think this goes into Jay's tomorrow stream. I think we're good on that one. I think we're good on that one. Okay, yeah. Make sure this is on the screen right, though. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Shrink it just a bit. But yeah, this one right here messes with me. I hate the fact, you know, again, imagine you lose your wife and then the authorities don't believe you. My God, for 20 years, they didn't have anything to actually put on the guy, but how horrible. Yeah, let's start out with a little video here, and then we'll go into the actual story here. Fucked up story, though, as I, again, continue to dive into this BTK insanity, quite frankly. It's very, very deep.
As part of our report on Dennis Rader, the serial killer who called himself BTK, I spoke with him over the phone and I met with him twice in jail. I think the only way to describe meeting this man is with one word: bizarre. He talks about killing in the same tone of voice as the rest of us might discuss shopping or going out to dinner. It's as if he doesn't recognize the truly horrific nature of his actions. Although there's another possibility, and it certainly occurred to me when I'm sitting across from him, is that he's proud of being a serial killer. Now, he admitted in court, he admitted to me that he had killed 10 people. In fact, at one point I asked if he had killed more, and he said no. He says the police know every case that he's been involved with. But I think the big question we had, all of us who've been working on this report, is why? So I did spend some time talking to him about his childhood. He claims he was never abused. Of course, that's the first thought any of us have, that someone who would commit these kind of murders had to be abused as a child. He says he was not. Although he does tell us about some pretty strange occurrences in his childhood, and we'll discuss that in our 48 Hours report that will air this week. And throughout the conversation, when he would talk about the people he killed, he never seemed to show any kind of real remorse.
That's a big part of it too, and we're going to show a little bit of him in court, in trial, as well. This is him actually breaking down the Vicki Wegerle murders, and I mean, it's the way he talks about it. He's just so matter of fact. Again, one of the detectives mentions it like he's just telling a fishing story to a buddy. Real quick, Angel D, 3 months. Remember, for 3 months? Are you kidding me? 3 months again. Can I get a baby? I got your money. Well, of course. Well, of course. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. That is amazing. Let's also get you a little anniversary right here, huh?
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. That's awesome. Hell yeah. Anniversary, baby. But yeah, when I'm going to read through here just a little bit. When Vicki Wegerle was mysteriously strangled in Wichita in 1986, her 2 young children not only lost their mother, but nearly lost their father, Bill. In the crime's aftermath, many suspected... Oh, wait, let me make sure this is all good. Nope. Hold on. We'll get it, baby. I also want to make sure it's just a little bit bigger. But yeah, they nearly lost their father as well. Living under suspicion to this day, Bill Wegerle cranks up the volume on the song Pretty Woman. And this was an article from 2005, right after the BTK arrest. When he hears it on the radio, it reminds him of his wife, Vicki, and the way he felt about her. They had met in high school. It was like we were just meant to be. We had so much in common, he says. But for 18 years, ever since Vicki's body was found strangled in their home, Bill Wegerle lived under a cloud of suspicion. And again, I'll show you Bill here. This poor man. Bill Wegerle, 28 years of age here at the time, at work when his wife was murdered, came home, actually passed BTK on the road. Noticed that it was his wife's car and said, well, that must not have been her. Gets home, even plays with his children for a minute because they were out. He's like, well, this is strange. The car isn't here. Thought that maybe he had to run to the store because the school isn't far from the house either. Maybe he had to go do something with the daughter. Again, this is 1986, a little bit of different times. It's still crazy to leave your kids, but that is what he thought at the moment. Starts going through the house and then finds his wife in the back bedroom. Again, discovered his wife on the bedroom floor, bound and gagged. And this is the house right here as it was in 1986. I've also got it pulled up as what it still looks like today. This house is still standing right now. But this is what the home looked like in 1986 in September. And then I've also got a very eerie scene here. The front door of the house, the BTK, Dennis Rader, would have actually knocked on and acted like a telephone repairman to get inside the house. Very disturbing. For 18 years, ever since Vicki's body was found strangled in their home, Bill Wegerle lived under a cloud of suspicion. There was definitely police officers that thought Bill killed his wife. Now the truth is known. Vicki Wegerle and the grieving husband and the children she left behind were among the looking to the left here, were among the victims of a serial killer who terrorized Wichita, Kansas for 3 decades. He called himself BTK. Bind, torture, kill is what those initials stand for. The details of the 10 murders committed by Dennis Rader are now a matter of public record. He described every crime in detail. I've dealt with very, very cold-blooded killers, but none who have such a tremendous memory over this many years. I've never dealt with anyone like this before, said District Attorney Nola Folston, who prosecuted Dennis Rader. But Bill Wegerle and his children had been silent until now about what happened to them over 18 years ago. Bill Wegerle was victimized and tortured in this whole episode from the day his wife died. The day that she was killed, it not only killed him, but it put him under suspicion for a long period of time. Bill met Vicki when he was just 16, when they were just 16. They're married at 17, and then at 18, their daughter Stephanie was born. To me, it seemed like she was having a happy and bubbly and easygoing life, as good as it gets. 8 years later, the son Brandon was born. My life revolved around her, and her life revolved around the kids and me and her family. Those were the important things to us. Then came a day so surreal that even 19 years later, Bill seems in shock. On September 16, 1986, Bill was driving home for lunch to see Vicki and Brandon, their two-year-old son, when he passed the family's car on the road with someone other than his wife behind the wheel. He walked into his house, and Brandon was sitting by himself on the floor, apparently alone in the house. Eventually, he went into the bedroom and discovered his wife's body on the floor. She had been tied up and strangled. The police suspected Bill of a murder early on, especially after he failed 2 lie detector tests. Now imagine that. This goes back to, we've had a lie detector specialist on here before, and I ain't going to announce it yet, but we have another lie detector guest coming on in about 2 weeks that maybe is a little bit on the other side of the spectrum of the lie detectors. Now, I personally would be freaked the hell out to be in a lie detector, period, point blank. I don't care if I'm innocent or not. I'm just going to say it like the way I feel, quite honestly. So you have this situation right here. This man who is fucking innocent failed 2 lie detector tests because of stress. Are you kidding me? And that right there is going to put the police, I believe this guy did it. Especially after 2 lie detector tests, the first given by police and a second by a polygraph expert hired by Bill himself. The individual that I hired to take the polygraph, he said he believed what I was saying was true. So one of these was from him himself and still failed it. He said it's just the stress that I was under. The police never had enough evidence to actually charge Bill or anyone else with Vicki's murder. But the rumors persisted for years. I remember going back to school and my friends would tell me on the playground that Mom and Dad said that your dad did it. Could you imagine that? Yeah, the whole town thinks that your dad did this, says Stephanie, who is still fearful at the memory. Asked how she responded, she said, I didn't say anything. We knew that what the truth was, so that made me more aware of who I was friends with. Brandon recalls a teacher in middle school who relayed to her younger son that me and my dad were bad people and to stay away from us. Absolutely. I mean, horrible to actually think about. Living in this community and then being outcasted like this when you did nothing wrong. You've lost your wife or your mother in this case. Horrible to think about this. This is actually hell on earth. This was torture, on itself. Now you have to think about not only the victims that he killed, but here is a whole nother set of victims. We already know that the families are victims in these cases as well, but this is a different kind of a spin on it, man. You're also having to go into these lie detectors. You're also being interrogated by the police while you're grieving your dead wife. Brandon recalls a teacher in middle school who relayed to her younger son that me and my dad were bad people, stay away from us. As they got older, of course, the children wondered what had really happened to their mother. By the time he was 7 or 8, Brandon says his grandmother told him that she thought BTK Killer was responsible. They already knew what happened. Those initials, and see, BTK, Dennis Rader, didn't gloat about this one. He didn't contact anybody on this one. He kept, and this is actually also another furler, we're going to get there, but this is the reason ultimately he did fuck up when he got caught in 04 when he started sending this in. and communicating for a year through 04 to 05. So yeah, he took her driver's license. He took pictures of her dead body in the bedroom, but he didn't gloat about it. He didn't contact the papers immediately about this one. So that MO had changed with BTK on this one. Those initials meant nothing to the child, but they haunted many of Wichita, representing a phantom killer who had never been caught. Vicki's death came 9 years after his last known murder, but her brutal death carried his trademark. She was bound and strangled just like all the others before her. And it kind of gives a rundown just a little bit of the crimes here and the MOs. So even the last one here in 77, Nancy Fox, called that 911 call in himself with the address and everything. The Wegerle children not only lost their mother, they also had to endure the whispers and rumors about their father for 18 years. Stephanie says she never considered that the rumors might be correct. And then on March day in 2004, everything changed. The breakthrough, it started with a letter to reporter Hurst Lavina. Inside the envelope was a copy of Vicki Wegerle's driver's license and what appeared to be pictures of her body taken at the crime scene. See, they knew initially and right out the gate that these pictures were not just taken by EMTs or anybody just on the scene or detectives even, because they tried to save her life. They got her immediately onto a gurney and moved her out of that bedroom before anybody could do anything. So they knew that the photos that were being sent by Dennis Rader could only be taken by one person, and that was the killer. I looked at the crime scene photos and realized they weren't routine crime scene photos. Lavina was right. The police didn't take those photos. In fact, since EMTs were the first on the scene and had moved the body before police arrived, there were no crime scene photos. The only person who could have taken those photos was the killer. For Lieutenant Ken Lauder, who ran the BTK task force, the letter was a huge breakthrough. After 18 years, Bill Wegerle was cleared. 18 years! And BTK was exposed as the real killer. But for the Wegerles and for all the families that lost loved ones to BTK, the horror came rushing back with the new development. This monster came into my home and took my wife away from me, took my life, our whole lives away from us as we knew it, and changed us as people for the rest of our lives. We had gone on with our lives for all these years, says his daughter Stephanie, and then to have it all come up again and to have lived through it all again was pretty hard. The return of BTK also shocked Wichita's district attorney. Like everyone else in town, her life as well as her career had been haunted by the faceless killer. I was the same as everybody else, she says, locking my doors, checking my phone, living in the same fear that everyone else was living with. The arrival of the mail of Vicki Wegerle's driver's license was only the beginning. Throughout 2004, there were a frenzy of chilling communications with BTK. The killer was scattering clues from past crimes all over the city, teasing, puzzling, and frightening the citizens. Now, I want to pop up a few things that I've snipped out here of some quotes here from BTK. Now, he called Vicki Wegerle Project Piano. I would come out in the evening, kind of walk around. I could hear she played a piano. So she became Project Piano. I heard the piano. I thought, well, that would be a good code name. I took a Southwestern Bell manual. They have the emblem on the front. I just trimmed that down and taped it on top of the hat. A yellow hard hat opens a lot of doors for you, Detective Otis says, I can imagine. That's how he got access to this lady's home. And she didn't even want to let him in at first. She actually was trying to convince him to go around to the backyard. There was a dog that she had out in the back. He convinced her to leave the dog in the back and let him do the phone lines inside first. He had a handgun inside of his bag once he got inside and pulled it out and proceeded to get her to the bedroom after that. Rader refers to Vicki Wegerle as PJ Piano, Project Piano, and writes about his regrets. I should have done a hit earlier in the day. Husband coming home messed things up in timing. After the fight and death, didn't have time to enjoy it. So yeah, she's telling him, my husband's coming home. My husband's coming home. He continues to go through with the acts that he wanted to commit that day. And Bill Wegerle was so close that he passed Dennis Rader on the road to his house. Dennis Rader stole the car went and immediately started dumping any kind of belongings or any kind of evidence, dropped the car back off in the neighborhood, and then went to his car, which was parked not far away. And by the time he had got to his car, he says that he could already hear sirens. That's how close Bill Wegerle was to getting there, finding his wife, unfortunately, who had already been strangled to death, and then EMTs were that close behind and still could not save her. There were horrible doggrams, little Barbie dolls, one with a noose around its neck, posed to represent the murder of 11-year-old Joseph Otero. This is him communicating in 04. There were cereal boxes, a sick play on the word serial killer, and ugly little pictures. Why did BTK reappear after years of silence? Police believe it was because of a writer named Bob Beatty. The publicity surrounding his new book about the murders. This guy always wrote, and at this time, BTK was writing his own book. This guy always wrote because he wanted attention. Beatty points out, noting the earlier complaining letters to a television station saying, "How many do I have to kill before I get some attention?" Soon the killer, seemingly jealous of Beatty's publicity, submitted his own book to police. And the BTK made a mistake inside another cereal box. He sent a note asking whether he could send police a computer disk and still stay anonymous. He wrote, "Look, be honest with me. If I send you a disk, will it be traceable? Just put the answer in the newspaper." BTK even suggested a secret code number for the communication. It was the break police needed. They placed a coded ad in the newspaper following BTK's instructions, assured him of anonymity. BTK sent in a disk and he was trapped. It took no time for computer experts to trace the disk to a local church, and a user named Dennis popped up. A Google search turned up Dennis Rader, president of the Christian Lutheran Church. The ghost who had terrified Wichita for 30 years finally had a face, and what a face it was. BTK was, of all things, a dog catcher, a suburban family man with 2 grown kids and a tidy little house. The investigators were sure they had BTK, but they wanted an airtight case. They wanted DNA. They secretly obtained a DNA sample from Rader's daughter, then in college, and compared it to semen left at some of BTK's crime scenes. It was a close match. So he didn't immediately, it didn't take him long, but he did not just immediately out the gate start spilling the beans, so to speak. But it did not take long at all. Let me just look up through here and chat real quick. I think I'm missing a little something. Hold on. What do we got right here? Lisa Hawkfan, $20. Lisa, thank you so much. I appreciate that. You are amazing. That's awesome. No, you are amazing. You are amazing. You are amazing. I'm a bad man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Give you a little bit of, what am I going to give you? I'm going to give you one of these right here. Huh?
Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
Why the fuck you do that?
Love that. Thank you all. Yeah, this one is really, really bad, guys. This arc, now here's the thing about BTK and Dennis Rader in general. There's so many different sub stories and subplots inside of his full story. It's fucking crazy. It would take a long ass time to go through all of them, quite frankly. I feel so sad for Carrie that took her DNA without permission, that Tella messed up. And then Carrie even says, as said later on, I believe it was in one of these articles I read, if they just would have asked, she would have given it over. But yes, you're right. They went and, they got it without her knowledge. Miss Krampus, what's going on? Thank you all hanging out in here today. Appreciate it. Again, trigger warnings for anybody just coming through. Hit that like. Also, let people know you're watching and share this out, folks. The confession. 3 decades after the BTK murders began, it all ended. One of the most notorious murderers in American history was arrested as he headed home for lunch. Wichita Police Lieutenant Ken Landwehr spent his entire career preparing for this one moment, confronting the man he believed to be serial killer BTK. His first reaction, I thought he was a geek. Yeah, could you actually imagine this is the guy you come up on at that point in time in 2005? That's what he looked like, right? For the first few hours, Rader admitted nothing. And then once they told Rader there was DNA evidence connecting him to 6 of the murders, including Vicki Wegerle's, traces of Rader's skin was found under her nails. And he knew that was going to be there because she nicked him in the neck. Suddenly, Rader started to talk. The dam had broken. You could not shut this guy up. The most astonishing part of the confession was Rader's that the police had lied to him about the floppy disk, right? How could you be? That's the only thing he's pissed off about. How dare you lie to me about the floppy disk? And when I told him I was trying to catch you, Rader responded, but we had such a good thing going. Can you believe that? Rader eagerly spent the next 30 hours reviewing the last 30 years of his life, proudly confessing to the murders after murder and revealing a darker nature than anyone could have imagined. was just nauseating. He'd start going on and on and on about each and every one of them. And if anybody has seen the footage of him in court, I'm only going to show Vicki Wegerle. He can't shut up. He's just giving it all. He's just, let's go. Here we go. I wanted to read something right here. Yeah, reemerging. Again, kind of where I'm just at right here after 30 years. Rader says he was retired. He was going to go off the face of the earth, or so he says. Soon enough, an excuse to grab the limelight would come again. The Wichita Eagle published an anniversary article about the mysterious serial killer known only by the name he had given himself, BTK, and who had committed his first murders 30 years earlier. Of course, it was all so long ago, Rader found his exploits weren't even front page news anymore. He says it all made him feel a little itchy. Rader, quote, that really stirred it. I read that in the paper and I always thought, I'd like to bring this back out again, but should I? And then I've reached to the point in my life, the kids were gone, not really bored, but kind of bored. And something else, Rader knew a local lawyer was writing a book about him, and about BTK, that is. That didn't sit too well with the man who had such an enormous appetite to draw attention, the narcissistic ego. Rader felt only he could do justice for the story. Rader, another quote, eventually I was going to tell the story in my own terms, and not his terms. They already had the killings, so that's factual. But they didn't know how I worked and moved around the projects, the haunts, how I picked my victims. They didn't know how that worked. I could just really stir the hornet's nest up with the media by just showing them pictures and puzzles and playing a game with them. So in March of 2004, Rader made contact, not just signaling out that he was still around, but far more ominously sending what appeared to be proof of yet another murder, another young woman whose death had never been linked to BTK. Laviana quote here. I copied the envelope, copied the letter, and took the letter straight to the police department. Did you read it? Asked Magnus. There's nothing to read. There are no words on it. I thought it was a crime scene photographs that some crackpot had gotten a hold of on the internet or something. The pictures appeared to be pictures of a dead woman. Her body had been posed in several different ways. There were clearly not police photos, and there was something else, a photocopy of a driver's license of Vicki Wegerle. Wegerle's driver's license, and immediately I knew this probably came from Vicki Wegerle's killer. In September of 1986, not bail either, you sons of bitches, Vicki Wegerle, a young mother, was found tied up and strangled in her home, and a trophy had been taken. This was her driver's license. So police had naturally suspected BTK, but there were differences too, especially that the killer had never publicly boasted about it afterward, as was his pattern. Now, all these years later, in addition to the copies of the photos and the driver's license, there was the envelope that they came in, the return address, Bill Thomas Killman, BTK, and that's when we realized that this may be the real deal. Magnus, tell me about that moment. It's just total disbelief that he was still here. Lavina agreed to give the police 2 days to nail it down and then broke the story. The ghost was back. Police could now say that more than 17 years earlier, Vicki Wegerle had indeed been BTK's 8th known victim. So about resurfacing in 2004, sending a letter along with a photograph and the driver's license of the victim, he's saying, I'm still here. You never caught me, and I've been here all along. Former Wichita TV news director Ron Lowen made a prediction to almost a year before Rader was caught, and sadly, when it was all over, he'd been proven right. There had been 2 more murders since before connected to BTK that brought the total number of victims to 10. Yeah, insane. I am going to show you guys... a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to show you Dennis Rader himself explaining Vicki Wegerle's death. Again, trigger warning on all this. Anybody that does not feel like you want to be a part of that, I 100% understand. I completely freaking understand. I'm probably going to chill out on BTK for a little bit after this one. Honestly, I've been kind of diving deep. I've got some more footage I want to pull out of the interview with Carrie. Anybody that did not see the interview with Carrie on Feral Friday, please go check it out. But for the last week and a half, I've been deep diving hard into Dennis Rader and BTK, and I honestly only got more involved after the interview with Carrie because there's parts of this, and it's so deep. There's so many levels, and they go so fucking deep. But yeah, I'm probably going to take a step back just for a little bit before I go back into another story, another side of this, just because it is a lot. It's a lot, man. It's a fucking lot. It's a fucking lot. But yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out. Appreciate it. Again, trigger warning on this footage, and we'll watch it. There's one other thing I want to show you guys also. It's actually the detective. One of the detectives that was interviewing and got the confession from BTK. He's on the stand in the actual trial, and I'm not going to watch the entire thing. It's about 50 minutes, and I'll link it if anybody wants it. Please go watch it. It's super interesting. But I do have a few snippets in there that I kind of want to just go through and watch. So it is interesting, though. And again, I would anybody that really wants to do some more diving on your own accord. I've been doing a lot of history diving is what I've been doing. But anybody that wants to dive deep and watch just a documentary and be lazy about it, BTK Confessions of a Killer, I believe it's what it's called. It's an HBO documentary from January of 2022. Super fresh, super new. About a year and a half old now, and it's good. I got one episode left, but it's good, man. But yeah, let's watch this for a minute.
Yes, sir. All right. Sir, in count 9, it is claimed on or about the 16th day of September 1986 in Sedgwick County, Kansas, that you unlawfully killed a human being.
All right, give me one sec. I see some love coming through here. Let's show it up. Say no to globalism. $4.99. You're doing great, Steve. Smoke it. Boom. Appreciate that. Thank you, baby.
Give me the loot. Give me the loot.
We trying out here. We trying. Really appreciate that, though. Thank you. Sometimes, Jay, man. Woo. I think this one's got me.
Vicki Wegerle, maliciously, willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation by strangulation, inflicting injuries from which said Vicki Wegerle did die on September 16th, 1986. Can you tell me what you did here in Sedgwick County on that day that makes you believe you are guilty?
Again, Vicki Wegerle was another potential victim. I went through those different phases, locked in on her, as I would call it, and decided that I would try that date. I used a ruse as a telephone repairman to get in their house. Drove there in my own personal car around lunchtime, during lunch hour, or approximately that time. It was earlier in the morning than that. And I actually went somewhere else and changed my clothes, what I call my hit clothes. And,
Hit clothes?
Hit clothes, basically different, things that I need to get rid of later. Not the same kind of clothes I had on. I don't know what other better word to use it, crime clothes or hit clothes. I just call them hit clothes. Anyway, I walked from my car as a telephone repairman. As I walked there,
Holly Berry, going to come through with a little bit of love. Thank you. Appreciate that, Holly. Hit you just to give you a little bit, baby. Yeah.
On the telephone helmet, I had a briefcase. Went to one other address just to kind of size up the house. I'd walked by it a couple times, but I wanted to check it a little bit more. As I approached it, I could hear a piano sound. And went to this other door, knocked on him, and told him that we were recently working on telephone repairs in the area. And went to her and knocked on the door and asked her if I could come check her telephone lines inside.
Did she allow you in?
Yes, she did.
What happened then?
Went over and found out where the telephone was, simulated that I was checking the telephone. I had a make-believe instrument, and after she was looking away, I drew a pistol at her and asked her if she'd go back to the bedroom with me.
Was this the same .357 Magnum you used?
No, this was a different one.
Different pistol. Or you asked her to go back to the bedroom with you after drawing a pistol on her?
Yes, sir.
What happened then?
I told her, we went back to the bedroom, I told her I was going to have to tie her up. She was very upset.
I think that's a part of how fucked up this is. If you watch all of this, all of him just talking about these murders that he committed, this is exactly how he talks about every single one of them. Well, I tied her up.
And I think
he's giving you a fucking recipe.
I used some material that was in, and that's another thing. I'm not sure, but I think I used the material that they had in their bedroom. And after I tied her hands, she broke that and we started fighting. And we fought quite a bit, back and forth.
All right, she was physically fighting you?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
What happened then?
Finally got the hand on her and got a nylon sock and started strangling.
So you wrapped the stocking around her neck?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What happened then?
I finally gained on her and put her down, and I thought she was dead, but apparently she wasn't. But after
I'm going to say this right now. From everything I've read, it sounds like Vicki Wegerle was a bad lady. A badass is what she is. She fought for her life that day. Unfortunately, a little bit too late from Bill coming home, but she fought for her fucking life that day. She did not just go down easy. She was fighting for her life. And again, her scratch on his face, neck area, getting that skin under her fingernails is a big part of the DNA that ended up getting this son of a bitch, quite frankly. So, yeah, Vicki Wegerle is a fucking powerful woman, man. Like, she might be one of the key components of getting this motherfucker caught. Even though he had already fucked up and started talking to him again and sending the disc. She fighting him and then having a little bit of his fucking DNA underneath her fingernails. Yeah. Fuck you, BTK. That's the real fucking reason. Vicki Wegerle is the real fucking reason.
She was down and not moving anymore. I rearranged her clothes a little bit and took some quick photos. I think 3 of them, if I remember. And then after that, there was a lot of commotion. She had mentioned something about her husband coming home. So I got out there pretty quick. The dogs were raising a lot of cane in the back. The doors and the windows were all open to the house. There was a lot of noise when we were fighting. So I left pretty quickly after that. Put everything in the briefcase and had her. I'd already gone through her purse and got the keys to the car and used her car for my getaway car.
All right, now you indicate that you thought that she was dead. Did you discover later that she was not dead?
Yes, I guess the paramedics arrived and they tried to attempt to revive her, and that failed. I don't know whether she died there or on the way to the hospital or at the hospital. I don't recollect.
But you later found out that she did die as a result of your strangulation.
Yes.
Now, sir, let's turn to count 10.
No, he's not embarrassed about it. He doesn't give a shit. He's actually happy and a little bit elated to be talking about it. Now, another thing that I did want to show here. Now, this is one of the detectives, Detective Kelly Otis here, who is, again, got a confession from BTK. So I'm going to be jumping around a couple of different points here that I was kind of remembering, but there's some interesting stuff in here and very chilling stuff because, again, just imagine this is the man you're talking to. This is the guy you're talking to that's done all this horrible stuff, and he's just nonchalantly laying it out for you.
Rader said that he picked Miss Wegerle as a victim, a future victim, simply one day when he was driving by their house and saw Vicki walk outside and get into the car.
Okay. And did you ask him further questions about that?
I did.
And what did you ask him?
I wanted to know if he had ever, during the time after he picked her out, during his stalking time or his trolling time or whatever he referred to it as, if he had ever tried to make contact with her in a public place, like in a grocery store or in a church or in a public place of business to get more information. And he said no, he did not. The only stalking he did of her was basically from afar, watching the house, paying attention to her habits. He had no personal contact with her up until the day that he killed her.
In fact, one of the things that happens when you're looking at a cold case would be a fair statement that, attempt anything that you can think about or remember, and you get numerous reports, and in this investigation, numerous tips, etc. And those are followed, and you did some investigation regarding maybe things that people may have seen that would indicate who her killer may have been.
Yes.
But as it turns out, there is one killer in this case.
Yes.
I want to show a photograph behind you. This is a picture. It's a crop from a larger family picture, but this shows. Hey,
I will say also, I don't think I'm going to show any of that. I was watching this video earlier, and they do show in this video some trigger warning stuff. I mean, they try to edit it, but there's some bad stuff in here. So if I don't catch anything, again, trigger warning on some of this stuff, guys. I'm trying not to show Vicki Wegerle's body after the fact, but it is in this video so I'm going to try not to let that happen, but just, again, warning.
Vicki Wegerle in life at 28 years of age.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Go ahead. Now, did you have some question in your mind about how long he'd actually watched Vicki Wegerle?
I did.
And you asked him about that?
I did.
What did he tell you?
And do you guys see that right there? How long before the day of your hit? How long did you watch her? Rader, most of the places were about 3 weeks. That's an average. So he would take about 3 weeks to decide if this was going to be a potential project that he would actually try to fulfill the fantasy of.
About how long he'd actually.
Again, like if he saw somebody in a routine, that was the real problem. If he's seen the routine was impenetrable, quite frankly, easily to get inside of. If you see the husband's not there at this part of the day, she's taking care of the kids, she's there. You know, you get the routine down.
Watch Vicki Wegerle?
I did.
And you asked him about that?
I did.
What did he tell you?
He said that he had normally in his statement, he would spend about 3 weeks of stalking, of surveilling his victim. He could not remember exactly in the Wegerle case how long he spent watching her and her family before he killed her, but he thought it would probably be around the normal for him, which was around 3 weeks.
And I think Detective Ralph shared with us that part of it was that he would like maybe stalk someone else at the same time.
Yes.
And in fact, in the course of all the interviews, it was learned by each of you who interviewed him that he was constantly stalking people.
Constantly.
Okay. And one of them was Vicki Wegerle, who lived in that home with her family. Could you tell us who's in this picture?
The family photo shows Mr. Wegerle on the left, daughter Stephanie at the top of the photo, son Brandon at the bottom, and then Vicki on the right.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please. Now, as you've already indicated, now, there is a photograph of her piano as it appeared in her home at that time.
Yes.
Now, did you ask him about how he managed to get into the home of Vicki Wegerle?
He told us that he used the telephone repairman ruse. He had a hard hat, a yellow hard hat. He was able to stick a Southwestern Bell logo on the front of the hard hat to make it look official. He had a fake identification, which he would talk about in his writings, that he made from a business card, and was able to get into the home as a telephone repairman.
And he refers to it as some type of a boogie hat or a bogey hat.
I don't know what that means. I have no idea.
But he was telling you how it opened a lot of doors for him.
He
Is that right?
said that his telephone repair ruse opened a lot of doors for him.
Go ahead. And this would be the front door that had opened for him on that day.
Yes.
All right. And this is the front door that opens into the living room area, and we can see a toddler, a toy there, perhaps being used sometime by Brandon Wegerle. Go ahead. Now, when he was telling you about this, he also let you know that he still had this emblem.
Yes.
Was keeping it.
Yes.
And he referred to it where he kept it as.
Oh God, yeah,
what?
yeah. That's a term that I learned in that documentary, and I'm sure Mikey, what's going on? Also, brother, I'm sure you've seen that documentary, the HBO doc. But yeah, Radar has a name for this. So I mean, he can literally murder. We heard this in the interview with Carrie on Friday. He could murder somebody and then come home and eat dinner. That's the cube shifting. He was cubing. What side of the cube are you getting? Are you getting BTK? Or are you getting Dennis Rader, the dad, the father? Or are you getting the murdering, binding, torturing bastard? It's a wild doc. It's really interesting. Again, it's Ramsland actually interviewing him through the phone while he's in prison within the last few years. I'm sure it's from 2020, 2021. If it came out in January 2022, then it's probably from 2020. It takes a minute to get that stuff together. Pretty fairly recent still. And he's still pretty sharp in these interviews. And then you have her kind of, they're also going through his whole life as well. You're getting the story, but then she's also critiquing and kind of breaking down what's going on. And I think that it's pretty brilliant. I think it's good, man.
His lair, the BTK lair, as he called it.
Yeah, would lair. His lair. It's where he would keep all of his shit.
Now, so when you had the opportunity to start searching through his stuff, are these the items that you found that he had kept?
Yes, and the one on the left, the logo, appeared to be a sticker, a transparent, clear sticker with the logo on it. The paper behind it, it looked as if the sticker had been peeled off at least once, probably more. And then when he was done with it, he would put it back on the backing. so that he could keep the sticker there.
Okay, and this, the other side is a cutout of a,
That appeared to be the cutout of a telephone book cover, maybe, too.
and their killer, excuse me. But because of Rader's interview, he attempted to describe, at least in his words, how those conversations went.
Yes.
And he discussed with you conversations that he had with Vicki Wegerle.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
He generalized, saying he made small talk with her. He was
Yeah, this is the detective about to discuss basically when BTK showed up and how he persuaded to get into the home.
able to talk his way in with his outfit, and had a briefcase with him that he had a what he called a headset in his writing, making me believe that it was probably one of those old-fashioned headsets that phone repair guys would use, where they would clip on with alligator clips to the wires. He told her that he needed to check the lines. During our discussion, he said she let him right in. He found her phone in the dining room area, began messing with the box, the telephone jack, as if he was looking to...
That's a good question. Angel, do y'all think serial killers are going to get much more specialized due to knowledge of DNA, cameras, phone pings, or is it going to make it more difficult to be a serial killer now? I think it'll make it more difficult, and then it'll make the ones that are actually smart, not the ones that are stupid, which luckily they are stupid and they'll end up getting caught. But the ones that are really smart, they'll have to figure out other ways, right? They'll probably actually figure out some kind of workaround. But no, I mean, you just have to be extra careful, I guess, would be the thing. Because at the end of the day, if your DNA is left behind, you're fucked, especially today. If you're carrying a cell phone, which is every single person, the phone pings, you're fucked. I mean, cameras on every street corner, it definitely makes it more difficult. A good thing, for a good thing. I mean, Knox Girl, wait, did he really use this phrase? This is interesting. I'm starting to question my own sense of humor and or understand why I have no friends. Yeah, true crime family, baby. It'll make you question some stuff.
Problem with it. Made small talk while he was doing so. In his written document, it goes into a little more detail about his thoughts at the time and what he was planning to do.
Okay. What does it say?
As he was, according to the written document, as he was making the small talk with her, he was trying to decide whether this was a go or a no-go in his words.
You're right, Dixie.
He also describes in the written document not getting in so easily.
No, that's true. Salty Sleuth, true crime time. Make it more difficult. The workaround will be the legal system itself. That's true.
Vicki, according to the document, had several questions for him at the door. The Wegerles had a dog in the backyard, and at one point Vicki wanted to let the dog in the house so that Rader, the phone repair guy, could go to the backyard. However, he was able to talk her into leaving the dog in the backyard, and he would check the lines in the house first.
So when he initially is talking to Detective Otis and Detective Gouge, he doesn't portray Vicki as having that much problem. It was an easy deal for him to get in.
It seemed much easier in our discussion than it did in his written document.
And his written document is indicated to have been written closer in time to the murder.
Yes.
Now, this photograph behind you is also taken by crime scene investigators at when they were experimenting. Is this kind of the manner in which he spoke to you?
Yeah, he was. Mr. Rader was very nonchalant, far more than I ever expected. He was. It was like we were talking over a coffee, as if he was relaying a fishing story.
And he expected you to know what leather up meant.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. We're going to put on a screen. It's a graphic photograph. Actually, there are 3 photographs in one slide depicting just the feet and the wrist of Vicki Wegerle. Okay. Now, these were taken at the time of her autopsy and show the bindings on each of her wrists and also the bindings of her ankles. Is that correct?
Yes.
And those, of course, were maintained in evidence, but this is what he was referring to when he spoke to you as leathering up.
Apparently.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Of course, you continue discussing the details of this, and what does he tell you?
He said that after tying her ankles and her wrists, he put her down on the bed, However, the bindings on the wrists came free. Either broke out of them or got out of them, or they came loose and started a fight with it.
Okay, go ahead. And this is a view of that bed. And the purpose for showing this photograph, a crime scene photograph of the bed, what was the purpose of taking this picture, you think?
Well, as you can see in the bottom right of the photograph, the comforter of the bedspread is messed up. That's a water bed, and you can see that the comforter is moved. It did appear to the investigators in '86 that there had been some type of activity on the bed.
Okay. And Rader then confirmed that to you?
He did.
By saying some more things, describing their fight, is that correct?
Right.
And what did he tell you?
He said they rolled around on the bed. He was trying to gain control of her again once she got loose of the wrist bonds, and that they ended up on the floor. And that is a quote from him. She was fighting for her life, and he was trying to take her down.
Damn right, Knox girl.
So, again, he recognizes the fighting, that she knows that he's trying to kill her.
And even more so in the written document.
Okay. Is there something that you recall that from that document related to this?
In the document, he makes one of his portions of it is that when he had her on the bed, he pulled out his strangler rig, and that once she saw that strangler rig, she began to pray.
Go ahead, please. And so she was praying in this bedroom, and this shows basically the foot of the bed.
Yeah, that's actually the left side of the bed, and then the foot of the bed would be here.
Okay.
You can see the dresser with the television and the other dresser to what would be the right side of the bed, if you will.
Okay. And there is a pointer there, a laser pointer, right?
Yes,
Could you
ma'am.
kind of show where her body was basically located?
It doesn't
especially
show in the
here?
photo, but basically it's in this area here.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please. Now, he described that fight. In fact, she did, knowing that he was trying to kill her, he describes it as fighting like a hellcat.
Yes, that's how he described it.
And when he was talking to you, you talked to him after Detective Clint Snyder had talked to him about Kathy Bright.
Yes.
And so when he said the word, she fought like a hellcat too, he was referring to Kathy Bright.
He was, and he would add that Vicki fought harder.
Now, and when he told you that, he also mentioned to you another little problem that she presented for him. And what was that?
He said that during the fight she nicked him and indicated that she had scratched him, and he had said on his face. In his written document, he documented her scratching him on his neck.
All right. In fact, he said something to you on the order that you might be able to see it, I think.
He actually asked me in the interview if I could see. Apparently he thought he had a scar. I couldn't see anything where he was pointing.
You've attended quite a few autopsies in the course of your work as a homicide investigator.
Yes.
And you've seen evidence from individuals who have been attacked and indicated things on their body that would indicate struggle.
Yes.
All right. And when you looked at the autopsy photographs of Vicki Wegerle, was it apparent to you from those photographs that she had struggled with her attacker?
Oh, very apparent.
Okay. Go ahead, please. We're going to show two autopsy photographs of Vicki's bruising. These will be of her face and head and neck. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, let me skip through the. Okay, boom, I just skipped it.
First,
That actually does show some stuff. Again, trigger warning in case I miss it. They do show some autopsy stuff. So
strangulation or asphyxiation. And Miss Wegerle, from the photo, I did not see her in person in death. But from this photo, it appears that she has some petechial hemorrhaging on her right cheek, which would be an indicator of strangulation as well.
Thank you. Go ahead. We have one other photograph that shows abrasions to her ear and head. If you'll just point to that.
Yes, ma'am. There's a bruise and an abrasion here, and then some more marked bruising here behind the right ear.
Now, Lieutenant Landwehr and Agent Morton from the FBI had interviewed Mr. Rader prior to the time that you interviewed him.
Yes.
And you're aware that during that discussion he had talked to them about this happening to him, about her scraping him.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead, please. Now, We have a quote from his interview here where he's describing to you that she either scratched me, and then he says, "I know you guys got some stuff on her fingernail."
Yes.
Now, that was because of his interaction with Lieutenant Landwehr, where that was discussed and described.
That is correct.
It's not because he knew it from something he read in the paper or anything like that.
No, that was the fact that we had found DNA under her fingernails was not released publicly at that point.
In fact, he invited you to sort of look, at his head and face and neck area to see if you could see where
That
he'd
is
been
correct.
scratched, because he thought he might still have a scar or something.
Yes.
Did you do that?
I did. I looked. I didn't see anything.
Didn't see one. Okay, thank you. This is an autopsy photograph of only the left hand of Vicki Wegerle. Okay? And ultimately, as it turns out, that this hand, this is a picture of her hand at the time of autopsy.
Yes.
And fingernail scrapings were taken at that time.
Yes.
Now, at the time when these fingernail scrapings were taken in 1985, what was the purpose of doing that?
In 1986, the technology for DNA was in its infancy. Fingernail scrapings were taken as a routine part of a homicide autopsy because analysts would actually look microscopically for human skin under the fingernails to give them an indication as to whether the victim was able to scratch or attack it.
Okay, so they did a process where they scraped it out and saved it in a tin.
Correct.
And indicated where it came from on the outside and sealed it. Now, so they're looking for skin,
Correct.
as you indicated. But if there were blood present, that would not necessarily be useful to them at that time.
They probably could have done basic serology on blood. However, there was certainly not routine DNA testing in 1986.
Okay. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. All right. So this happened September 18th, 1986. Steve Ketches, who was with the Wichita Police Department for some time as a lab investigator, took and preserved those fingernail scrapings.
Yes.
From both of her hands, actually.
Correct.
But it turns out to be her left hand that caught the killer.
Yes.
2/14 of the year 2000, you were assigned this cold case
The year 2000.
review, and you took those scrapings after looking at all the evidence in this case and realizing those were still there. You took those to the Sedgwick County Regional Forensic Science Center for DNA examination.
Detective Gouge and I took several pieces of evidence for DNA examination to the Science Center, including the fingernail scrapings.
Okay, good. Then the next event related to this is August 14th of 2003, and Daniel Fanistock, who's a DNA analyst, he notified you about what he had discovered. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what did he discover?
The DNA lab found unknown donor, unknown male donor DNA from the fingernail scrapings from the autopsy. It appeared to us to be killer DNA. The killer's DNA was left behind.
And that was, in particular, as we've said, the left hand. Go ahead. Then on April the 2nd, of 2004, you got another report from a different DNA analyst that works at the same location, Shelley Stedman. And what did she tell you?
Lieutenant Landwehr had submitted the blue robe from the Fox scene and other items for DNA testing from the BTK cold case. After the DNA examination was done on those items, we learned that the DNA profile found on the Nancy Fox robe, unknown male donor, matched the unknown male donor from the Wegerle scene.
Okay. And that was, when we're speaking of the blue robe, we're actually speaking of that blue nightgown that Miss Folston had in here and was showing to Detective Ralph that had cutouts.
Correct.
Right. And that's where we found a match to this fingernail scraping.
Correct.
Go ahead. Then on just a few days later, the same analyst, Shelley Stedman, April 9th of 2004, she advised you of what?
She contacted Lieutenant Landwehr to tell him that the rest of the BTK evidence was undergoing testing, and Lieutenant Landwehr had submitted, and that there was another match for DNA to the two items we previously talked about, and then the basement floor of the Otero scene. the semen that was recovered from that scene matched our other 2 items as well. So we had a 3-way match of DNA.
Okay, so we have lab investigator Ron Eggleston, also had been with the Wichita Police Department for some time in that capacity, from the Otero crime scene.
Correct.
And that area of the floor shown by Kevin O'Connor in the picture when he was discussing with the KBI, Mr. Thomas, I believe, Larry Thomas, we could see that location on the floor where they had taken several DNA or swabs, not for DNA at that time, but swabbings to try to collect and preserve that evidence.
Yes.
And in fact, it was preserved to the extent by that lab investigator to that it made a match in 2004.
Yes.
Go ahead. Now, fast forward to February 25th of the year 2005, when Dennis Rader is arrested. Detective Dana Gouge was asked to collect swabs from Rader. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And do you have knowledge of where that was done? And I have a word up there. It's sometimes called buccal or buccal swabs. And how does that process happen? And did you observe it happening with Rader?
I did. Detective Gouge executed a search warrant we had for Rader's DNA on the date of his arrest. Buccal or buccal swabs are simply oral cheek swabs taken with a long Q-tip. Gouge took several of those swabs from Rader, took the cheek swabs pursuant to the warrant, collected them, submitted them, and they were immediately taken to 2 separate labs for examination in comparison to our known DNA that we already had.
Why take them to 2 separate labs?
We used 2 labs for verification purposes. We used our local Sedgwick County Regional Forensic Science Center DNA lab, and we also utilized the KBI lab in Topeka so that we would have 2 tests, same sample, verification testing.
Okay. And so Shelley Stedman with the Sedgwick County Regional Forensic Science Center and Cindy Schuler with the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, also a DNA analyst, on February the 26th of 2005, began working on those samples that you had taken from Rader.
Yes.
And can you describe that? They worked through the night, didn't they?
They did, nonstop.
Right. And were they working together at all, calling up to see what your answer is?
Not that I know of, but I wasn't there. But I don't believe so.
Did they arrive at a similar answer?
They did.
All right. And that was what?
That was, in very simple terms, the DNA matched from all of those crime scenes with Dennis Rader's known DNA, and that he was the BTK killer.
Okay. Go ahead. Now, there's a thing that they do with DNA, and that is a statistical evaluation.
Yes.
And they say, what is the probability of selecting an unrelated individual at random from the Caucasian population?
Yes.
And at the Sedgwick County Regional Forensic Science Center, they tested at 15 loci, and what is that number?
The statistical number given to us by Shelley and the people at the DNA lab here were the odds of it being someone other than Dennis Rader, to put it in very simple terms, would be 1 in 819 quadrillion people.
Thank you.
One of those numbers.
Now, back to Rader's version of how he continued to make sure that Vicki Wegerle was dead. What did he do?
As it says on the screen, he got her down, continued to strangle her. He was able to get his hand on a nylon stocking that was available there in a drawer in the dresser. He used that nylon stocking, wrapped it around her neck, which he would tell me gave him the added pressure that he needed to take her down and put her down, and he killed her by strangling her.
In fact, the picture behind you, a crime scene photograph taken of an open drawer there in her home, where it appears that she kept pantyhose and socks.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Go ahead. This is a graphic photograph. There will be 2 photographs. They do not actually show her face, but a portion of Vicki Wegerle's neck. Go ahead. This shows the pantyhose.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Again, trigger warning.
Now,
try not to show that.
He started worrying
There it
about
is.
her husband coming home and described
I know
it
it was
as a
lurked
real
in here.
nice mess. Yes, go. This photograph is of that bedroom floor that we really couldn't see in the other picture, but you can see the dresser in the back. And this is where Bill Wegerle found Vicki.
Yes.
All right. And go to the next one. These two photographs, also crime scene photographs, they show that hose that was there and the leather shoelace and a knife. Can you tell us about that?
The stocking and the leather laces were wrapped around her head, neck, and mouth. Bill Wegerle used his own pocket knife when he found her and used that to cut those bindings from her, trying to save her life.
Now, these communications that Rader decided to send to various members of the media, or just tape on signs, or somehow get to you, he had sent basically a black and white sheet of paper that was a copy of the Vicki Wegerle driver's license and 3 photographs taken of her at the time of her murder.
Yes.
Now, one of the things those photographs were immediately recognized as most likely coming from someone.
So you gotta greet Dan when he walks into the chat here.
Dan's a fantastic.
Dan's a fantastic man.
Dan's a fantastic.
Dan's a fantastic man.
Killed her.
I think they had to come from her killer, yes.
But you knew that early because at the time they had actually removed her out trying to save her life, as you've described, and no one had taken crime scene photographs of her laying on that floor.
Yes, her body was not present in the house when the police arrived. There were no photographs of the crime scene which contained her body. She had been transported out.
And behind you, this is basically these pictures.
I did.
And what did he tell you?
I wanted to know if she was alive or dead in the photos. I couldn't tell. He said that she was dead, that there were other things he had wanted to do. He had certainly planned to do other things. He'd brought the Polaroid with him for those reasons, but that everything had gone bad.
Dan's a fantastic man.
As he said before, it was a big mess, so he had time to snap 3 quick photos, adjust her clothing in each of the photos for sexual purposes before he took off.
Okay, go ahead. And then he points at the first picture that you could see and tells you what?
He changed her dress, moved her clothing around, put a gag in her mouth after her death, snapped those photos. Goes into a little more detail in his writings, but basically that's what he said. Stuffed the gag in her, pulled her shirt up, pulled her pants down in different photos, and then took off.
2 graphic photos showing her. And these photographs are showing now are the Polaroids that you all collected when you searched his mother load, if you will.
Yes.
Now his mother load. Okay, go ahead. Now he
Trying
tells
to not show
you
that. The trigger warnings are in though.
This statement.
The trigger warnings are in.
He was leaving. He could hear
did not want to show
that. Now that can be quite right because of Mr. Wegerle coming.
Correct.
So what happened there?
Once again, the written document goes into more detail. Basically, Rader tells me that he leaves the scene in Vicki's car. He goes west on 13th, and his plan is to start dumping evidence immediately, which he does. He stops behind a convenience store at 13th and West Street, dumps some items in a dumpster there, continues north on West to 21st, ends up by Sweetbriar, dumps the rest of the physical evidence that he wanted to get rid of, and then returns to the scene of the murder, returns to that area because he's going to dump Vicki's car close to the house because he's got to get back to his. And as he is doing that, as he is dumping her car, getting into his vehicle to leave the area, is when he hears the ambulance approach.
Now, where had he left his vehicle?
He left his vehicle, according to him, in the back parking lot of the Indian Hill Shopping Center, which is right across the street to the south from the Wegerle house.
Now, this is a photograph behind you, also taken at that time,
take
because
notes?
police later discovered his the Wegerle vehicle.
Yeah, while the officers were working the homicide scene, other officers obviously were canvassing the area and did find her car in the 1300 block of North Edwards, which is about 2 blocks to the west from the scene.
Okay, go ahead. And this is just another shot, a little closer of that. Now, there is an added text here talking about Bill Wegerle. Now, he was obviously interviewed after this extensively.
Yes, he was.
And when you do a cold case review, you're looking back at things that people ask him and stuff. And in your assessment of that, did he describe everything in detail about what he had observed?
Bill Wegerle's story to the detectives in September of '86 as to what he saw on his way home for lunch. He had reported driving by and seeing what he believed was his wife's car passing him in traffic with a male behind the wheel. He got a quick glance at it, told himself that wouldn't be her car, it must be one that looks just like it. Got home, found her car missing, and then assumed that he had apparently thought it was a male, but it must have been Vicki in the car. His story to the detectives in '86 matched Rader's story as to the direction of travel that he took when he left and that he was driving her car. They passed each other.
So upon questioning, he starts telling them about this event.
Yes.
And the reports indicate an accurate description.
Yes, he was accurate.
Go ahead. Now, did you ask Rader a question about what would have happened? Because he said he'd heard the sirens and stuff.
Right.
And what did he tell you?
I asked him what he would have done had he been stopped by the police for a traffic violation for any reason. I wanted to see what he would say. And he said, "Oh, Jesus." Thought about it a few seconds and said, I guess I'd hope I would be quicker with the gun than they would be, referring to the police.
That he would shoot the police?
He would shoot the police, yes.
Go ahead. Now, this is a video still that was obtained courtesy of Cake, but
this one's
is a film
fucked up. Like, this one's the craziest one to read about, I think. I mean, they're all fucked up and horrible. This one, man, just the extra element of the husband getting blamed for the murder. Like, that's such an extra level of what the fuck, man. Like, this guy tormented this family on so many other levels. Not only did he do this to this poor lady, he also tormented the kids and the husband and the immediate family and the distant relatives forever, quite frankly. I mean, this man is evil incarnate. I read about and have studied, and, that's why I do this show, right? I mean, again, I go back to love unsolved mysteries, whether it's crime happening, killers, serial or mass. I like to read about this stuff, but BTK, Dennis Rader, may be the fucking worst I've read about, man. I mean, if you really get into some of these crazy motherfuckers that I even touched on this channel, like Ed Gein, crazy. John Wayne Gacy, fucking crazy. Jeffrey Dahmer, the one we cover every Sunday here on Murder Church, fucking crazy. In their own rights, they have broke. There's something in their brains have snapped or broken, though. I feel like a little bit more so than Dennis Rader, who granted John Wayne Gacy did the same thing, but he went a little bit more off left field, out of left field, right? A little bit more off kilter, quicker. Dennis Rader kept this up forever until he stupidly fucked up with the floppy disk, basically. Being older and not understanding that technology would fuck him. But he just led a normal life for 30 plus years. He just was normal. He had a family. He had 2 kids. He had a wife. Again, back to Carrie's quote from Feral Friday, he could go out and murder and then come back and eat dinner. The way that he could compartmentalize these different events and again, this difference between BTK and Dennis Rader is scary as fuck, man. Like, it's fucking crazy. Like, even just, it's true fucking evil.
It's been out there being shown all the time, but this is an actual photograph of Bill Wegerle taking his young son Brandon out of the home after police arrived.
Yes, that was taken the day of the homicide. Right. The film was shot that day.
Thank you. Now, he wanted to let you know that he did have, as you've indicated before, you referred to a piece of a document that he's written in longhand. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you've had an opportunity to read it, obviously. You've been talking about it. And is this a copy of the first page of a nine-page longhand story written by Rader describing the murder of Vicki Wegerle?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's true. Debbie, who is from this area, yeah, absolutely tormented the public as well. You never knew. And then there was long gaps in between, or was there? That's what's going on right now in real time, guys. They're right now trying to figure out and link him to other cases that they haven't figured out the codes for yet, right? That's something I didn't even just touch on. Not only did he do all of this while also having that Jekyll and Hyde type of an element of his life, he played with the police, with the families, with the public. Still to this day, there's these codes that are trying to be put together through pictures that he took 20, 30 years ago. From garments that were possibly taken from these women that the last time they were seen. This one is like a movie. It's fucked up, man.
Can you tell us, after reviewing that, I don't want you to read the entire thing, but can you tell us if you've selected some things that you think are relevant to this hearing that the court has not yet heard about the nature of Dennis Rader?
I did select some things that I thought were relevant to this hearing from these 9 pages.
Okay. Would you go ahead and tell us about that, or what you have gleaned from that?
To add to his, I hate to use the word credibility, but to add to the accurateness of his story and to match up with the facts of the murder, he describes the date, September 16, 1986. He begins his planning for the murder at about 10 a.m., according to his document. He decides and talks about that he has picked this house because it's a West Wichita victim, talking about striking in the northeast part of town before, in the south central part of town, the southeast part of town. It's time for a West victim, apparently, so he can spread that out. He lists the address of the Wegerle house. He has documented some of his stalking to the point where he knew that the husband or the man, he wasn't sure which, would sometimes arrive at lunchtime or in the afternoon. He lists a inventory of his kit that he brought with him, which included some cord, a gag, a camera, a knife, some gloves, some wrap, some plastic bags, Vaseline, wire cutters, a pry bar, and his special strangling rig. He goes on to talk about prior to murdering Vicki, he wanted to set a reason for him to be in the neighborhood. He didn't want to appear suspicious, so he made contact with an elderly couple who lived next door to the east of the Wegerles, which is verified by the neighborhood canvass that was done by officers in 1986, that he contacted them with his Southwestern Bell telephone repair ruse and did pretend to check their phone lines.
But then if you go and contact Southwestern Bell, since Rader didn't work for them, you would not find him.
That is correct. And the older couple next door were interviewed about any suspicious activity, and they did not mention the fact that a repairman showed up that day. However, they were quite elderly at the time. He describes the house and why he likes it because of the big, deep porch, and it sets off the street. When he makes contact with Vicki, he sees the small male child in the play area in the living room. When he makes his entry, pretends to check the phone, he pulls his gun out and remarks and writes down that she was very scared. He demands her purse and the keys to her car prior to any other activity and gets those. He says that as this is going on, as he's getting the items from her and holding her at gunpoint, the child is watching. He tells her that he's going to take her into the bedroom for sex. She becomes upset and says that her husband will be home at any time and begins to beg him to leave her be.
He describes it as begging?
Beg. He said, please, she begged. Once again, he quotes it. He gets her in the bedroom, tells her he's going to take these photographs of her and tells her to get undressed, and she begins once again begging him to leave her be. He reaches inside the briefcase and pulls out his strangler rig, at which point she begins a prayer. He then begins trying to strangle her, but the cord breaks on his strangler rig, and then she begins to fight him. She documents in here how she has scratched him on the neck and raked his neck with her fingernails. but he's able to get her down with the pantyhose and kill her. He says she is dying now. It took a long time to strangle her. I need to leave. Her husband may be home soon. Should I stay and kill him? He decides not to because things may get out of hand. He readies his camera, flips her over, puts her arms behind her back, even though they're not tied because she broke the bindings, and starts to take photographs of her. Takes the 3 photographs, which he documents her body position exactly, and then the rest of the note describes how he left, how he dumped the evidence, what evidence he dumped, and that he then returned back to work.
So he had actually thought or entertained the idea of waiting on Bill Wegerle to kill him also.
It certainly appears that way.
All right. Now, he also had with this a diagram that he had drawn of his movements and of the home and the body of Vicki Wegerle as he
Yes,
left.
that was with his documents.
Also with his documents, again, news clippings that he kept to remind himself of the murder. This is in the black binder in his mother lode.
Yes, and he had them all dated, as you can see.
And finally, he was disappointed that he didn't have time to really enjoy this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And this is a quote. He didn't really have time, and that's something he writes about, his regrets in that letter. Is that correct?
Yes.
PJ Piano. Did he have an afterlife concept for PJ Piano?
He did.
And what was that?
She was to be his bondage slave.
Oh shit! Okay, wait. City Kitty coming through. I wasn't able to find the doc on HBO/Max, but it's on A&E. If you have the app and the channel through TV provider or Hulu, it's on there. And again, yeah, that's the BTK Confessions of a Killer, I think it's called. Maybe it was originally on HBO and is now out there somewhere else now. I'm not gonna lie, I'm watching it through a little bit of the old open seas out there on the interwebs. Not gonna lie about it, but yeah, if you can find it, watch it. It's good.
I have no other questions. Thank you.
No, Your Honor. I may this witness be excused. Thank you, sir. You're excused.
Thank you.
State may call their next witness.
Yeah, that was the specific part about Vicki Wegerle. Yeah. Looking into this one is, again, one of the wildest stories. Inside is like a sub little, basically you have BTK's overall story, and then you have all these like little arcs inside of it. And then this one's even another subplot inside of that, where you have this woman, again, Vicki Wegerle's husband, accused for 20 years of killing his wife until it came to be known BTK was the guy that did it all along. Terrible. Crazy. And a few other things up here. Again, there's the house now. Still looks basically exactly like it did in 1986. Pretty much. Yeah, hit that like, guys, as you head out the door here tonight. Make sure you do share this out if you haven't already, to let people know what you're doing. You're hanging out Publicly Buzzed on a Tuesday night. We'll see you again on a Thursday. Expect something a lot more light Thursday. I don't know if it'll be aliens. I don't know if it'll be something completely different and not true crime related at all. I have no clue, but I'm going to definitely take Friday off from this level of intense subject matter, because this has been a lot. But it's also very interesting, and I'm definitely not done with this story yet, and I want to kind of dive into some more of these victims and kind of tell their story, because they're the ones that honestly need a voice now. The headlines are now about, luckily, Kerry Rawson's out there and getting her name in front of this dudes as well. But in the end of the day, in the prison, what's he doing? He's sitting there and he's loving this shit. He wants this. So, in the meantime, maybe we can put a voice out there for, again, the voiceless, because of the son of a bitch. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out here tonight. Appreciate it. Yeah, everybody keeping an eye out. If you're in, I don't know nothing about it. Arg. I don't know nothing about it. But if you're in the area of the escaped inmate, please beware. Be vigilant. Keep your eyes peeled. That story's crazy. We're going up on a week now. I did a live stream a couple of nights ago. What the hell? What the hell? Through the chat here just for a second. Yeah, you guys keeping it rocking and rolling. Really appreciate it, guys. Yeah, please come back though and hang out. Yeah, come and hang out Thursday, 10 p.m. Eastern time. I believe Dan will be joining me as well. We're gonna have a good one. Gonna have a good show. Feral Friday is gonna be a good one as well. We're gonna have a guest on here. Chris Dewitt is gonna be hanging out with us. Please come and hang out, and we're going to have a good Feral Friday. I don't know what we're going to be talking about. I know that he's actually corresponded with BTK and many different killers, so may go into that element for Feral Friday. We'll see. I'm sure that's just going to kind of flow with whatever, but we'll kind of get some kind of show flowing and some kind of subject on deck for that evening anyways. Kind of went a little bit extra long. That's why I want to kind of start a little bit early. I knew that this one was kind of going to flow. I'm going to probably go and finish this all up, wrap it up with that 4th episode right now. I'm one away from finishing that Confessions little mini doc thing that's happening from last year. It's good though. Can't recommend it enough. It is, man. It's too much. It's too much. Carrie fucking Rawson. 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 Chant it, baby. Chant it. All right, love you guys. I'll probably see y'all in the morning. I'm sure Jay's doing lots of cool stuff. He's going to be hanging out with the investigators in the morning, and I'm going to be hanging out probably in the chat. And yeah, let's go, baby. Love you guys. I'm going to end her. Let's do it. Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. I believe the portal is going to take you to one of Jay's streams tomorrow. I believe the one in the morning. I believe I've got that set up. Let me make sure I got that set up real quick. Let me just make sure. That'd be embarrassing. I do. Court hopping. Bam. Hell yeah. Got it. Ready to rock and roll. That's where you're going. That's where you're going. That's where you're going. Love you guys.